A tree that looks still may already be hollow within. In today's world, we are trained to look for danger in strength, in aggression, in loud voices and powerful moves. But as the Shaolin monk observes, not with the eyes but with the awareness, true danger is often silent. The most dangerous sign in a person is not how loud they speak, but how empty they've become inside, without even realizing it. It is not the fire that burns the forest that frightens the master, but the slow rot in the roots. And so I invite you to sit with me, not to judge others, but to reflect upon the signs within yourself. Because recognizing these signs is not about fear, it's about freedom. Let us now uncover the 5 signs that then left unnoticed. In the silence of the Shaolin temple, there is a simple yet profound practice that every disciple begins with. Not a movement, not a strike, but a question. The question is not spoken aloud, but it echoes within. What is this life for? This inquiry, gentle yet powerful, is the flame that lights the inner path. But when this flame of curiosity dies, what remains is not peace. It is stagnation disguised as calm. And this is the first and most subtle danger. The moment a person stops asking, they stop growing. Their body may move, their career may progress, but the spirit, it begins to wither. A person who loses curiosity ceases to evolve. They start living on autopilot, repeating habits, defending their beliefs, avoiding discomfort. The world around them continues to change, but inside they remain frozen in a version of themselves that no longer reflects who they truly are. Curiosity is the bridge between the known and the possible. When that bridge collapses, so does access to potential. You can spot such a person by their language. They say things like, "This is just who I am," or "I already know how the world works." But in Shaolin wisdom, mastery begins with not knowing. The true master doesn't claim to have all the answers. He remains a student of life until his final breath. Children are naturally curious. They touch everything, ask endlessly, look at ordinary things with wide eyes. And yet, as we grow older, we are taught to suppress that instinct. We are rewarded for being certain, not for being inquisitive. In time, curiosity becomes replaced by routine, and wonder is sacrificed for efficiency. But when you no longer wonder, you no longer see. You may look, but you may hear, but you don't listen. And this is the tragedy. Many people walk through life blind to the miracles around them, simply because they've stopped asking what else could be true. The loss of curiosity is a silent illness. It doesn't scream, it creeps in when the mind becomes too comfortable, too certain, too proud to question itself. And it shows up in many forms. Resistance to feedback, quick judgments, avoidance of new experiences. A person without curiosity lives in a cage of their own assumptions. They limit themselves not because they lack ability, but because they lack the courage to explore what they do not yet understand. In the Shaolin way, curiosity is not merely a mental exercise. It is a discipline. Every form, every breath, every step is an opportunity to see deeper. The same movement practiced 1,000 times can still reveal something new if the mind is alive and alert. But even the most beautiful moment becomes lifeless. So we are trained to remain curious about everything. About the way we breathe, the sensations in the body, the thoughts we believe, the emotions we suppress. Nothing is dismissed. Nothing is assumed. Because in curiosity, there is presence. And in presence, there is growth. But when curiosity dies, something else takes its place. Indifference. And indifference is dangerous. It is the soul's way of giving up without saying so. A curious mind will seek solutions, an indifferent mind will accept suffering as normal. A curious heart will reach out and connect. An indifferent heart will isolate and protect. Over time, this creates a person who appears fine on the surface, perhaps even successful, but is silently crumbling from within. The loss of curiosity is not just the end of learning, it is the end of listening. And when a person no longer listens, not to others, not to nature, not even to their own inner voice, they become blind to the very signals that could save them. The body will whisper through fatigue, the soul will whisper through longing, the world will whisper through synchronicity. But to hear those whispers, you must be curious enough to listen beyond the noise. And so, if you wish to remain alive in spirit, not merely in body, never stop asking. Ask even when you're tired, ask even when you're afraid, ask even when the answer may hurt. For it is better to be wounded by truth than to be slowly poisoned by stagnation. Curiosity is not weakness, it is the seed of awakening. And when that seed is gone, what takes root next is far more destructive than silence. It is blame. One of the clearest signs of a person who has drifted far from inner mastery is their habitual need to blame. Blame is the language of the unconscious. It is the smoke that rises from the fire of inner conflict, a fire that has never been properly tended. When a person points fingers outward but never questions their own patterns, they trap themselves in a loop of illusion. In Shaolin teaching, we say, a person who blames gives away their power. A person who blame is easy. It requires no effort, no reflection, no responsibility. But it is also deeply addictive, because it protects the ego. It shields us from having to admit that perhaps we were mistaken. Perhaps we need to change. Perhaps the world is not at fault. Perhaps it is we who are resisting the lesson. The person who constantly blames others, whether it's society, parents, partners, or even fate, builds an identity on victimhood, and a person trapped in the identity of a victim is not capable of transformation. Why? Because they have already decided that the cause of their suffering lies outside themselves. And if the cause is outside, then so too is the solution. They are now at the mercy of the world. But the Shaolin path is not a path of helplessness. It is a path of internal revolution. We are not here to control the outside, we are here to master the inside. When a student complains that the training is too hard, the master does not change the training. He teaches the student to become stronger. And so it is with life. The challenges are not to be blamed, they are to be used. But blame blinds us to this. It turns every challenge into a punishment, every setback into injustice, every lesson into an attack. Blame often wears many masks. Sometimes it is loud, angry, aggressive, but other times it is soft and silent, hidden behind sarcasm, behind passive withdrawal, behind a constant feeling of unfairness. Some people blame not with words, but with their energy. Their whole presence becomes a protest against life itself. They do not smile freely, they do not give openly. But here is the truth. No one owes you your healing. No one owes you understanding, recognition, or apology. These things may come, but they are not prerequisites for your growth. The moment you stop blaming is the moment you stop waiting. And the moment you stop waiting is the moment your true life begins. In Shaolin discipline, the blame is dissolved not by guilt, but by awareness. We are taught to turn the mirror inward and to judge ourselves, but to see clearly. And often, when we do, we find that the very things we blamed others for were reflections of something we avoided in ourselves. The anger we project is often the echo of self-rejection. So we must ask, what am I really running from when I blame? What truth am I unwilling to hold? You see, to move beyond blame is to step into great spiritual maturity. It means you are ready to stop being a leaf tossed by the wind and begin becoming the root that grounds the tree. You become unshakable not because the world changes, but because your perception does. But until that moment arrives, the one who blames will always be a prisoner. They will sabotage relationships, miss opportunities, and repeat cycles. Not because they are cursed, but because they are blind to their role in the pattern. And so the next time life feels unfair, the next time anger rises, the next time your heart closes, pause, do not look outward, look inward, ask, what is life trying to teach me here? This is the way of the inner warrior. The one who takes full responsibility gains full freedom. But the one who blames gains only a false comfort and a growing disconnection from truth. And when truth is denied long enough, another mask begins to form. One that appears positive, polished, always smiling. But underneath it, a different danger is growing. There is a kind of silence more dangerous than rage. It is the silence that lives beneath a forced smile, the silence that suppresses rather than soothes. In our modern world, there is a growing pressure to always stay positive, to speak in affirmations, to pretend that every storm is a blessing, even as it tears through the soul. But not all smiles are signs of peace. Some are masks worn to protect the world from what's really happening inside. And when a person becomes addicted to appearing okay, they cut themselves off from the very depth that healing requires. In the Shaolin tradition, we are taught to see things as they are, not as we wish them to be. We do not deny the rain, we walk through it aware of its presence, accepting its necessity. So too with emotional storms. Sadness, grief, anger, fear. These are not weaknesses, they are visitors with a message. But when we deny their presence in the name of appearing strong, one part performs. The other part suffers in silence. This inner divide becomes a battlefield that few see, because on the surface everything appears polished, composed, positive. The danger of constant positivity lies in its ability to numb the truth. A person who is always fine stops looking deeper. They stop asking for help. They stop reflecting honestly. They wear a mask not just for others, but eventually for themselves. And the longer the mask is worn, the harder it is to remove. It becomes fused with identity. They start believing that vulnerability is weakness, that struggle is failure, that sharing pain is something to be missing. But this belief does not strengthen them, it isolates them. True peace does not come from denial, it comes from integration. At Shaolin, we sit with the whole self, the joyful parts and the broken ones. We do not push discomfort away, we breathe into it, we observe it, because we understand that a lotus blooms from the mud, not from denial of the mud. Growth is not found in pretending everything is light. It is found by embracing the dark long enough to understand its message. And often, those who hide behind positivity are simply those who were never taught how to hold their pain with gentleness. You can often feel it in their presence. They speak in rehearsed quotes, they deflect sincere questions, they laugh too quickly, move too fast, avoid the stillness where truth might catch up. They are not bad people. They are simply afraid that if they take off the mask, no one will understand them. But ironically, the mask itself creates the very disconnection they fear. And healing cannot happen in hiding. The Shaolin way is not about choosing between strength and softness. It is about discovering that they are the same. A warrior who cries does not lose power, he regains it. A mind that admits fear is not weak, it becomes clear. The goal is not to appear positive, it is to be whole. And wholeness includes every emotion, every wound, every unspoken truth. Wholeness says, I am both light and shadow, and I welcome them equally. But the person trapped in the mask of constant positivity rejects this. They cling to control, they fear collapse, and so they construct a life built on performance, one where emotions are edited, conversations stay shallow, and moments of real connection are rare. Eventually, the smile becomes heavy, the voice grows distant, and the inner storm, what is not expressed, begins to express itself through the body. Fatigue, anxiety, illness. Because the soul was not designed to fake its way through life. In truth, the most courageous act is not to shine all the time. It is to allow yourself to be real. But when that courage is absent and a person drifts further and further into emotional suppression, they lose something sacred, their ability to feel connected to life itself. And slowly they stop noticing what matters. They stop feeling awe. They stop listening to the rhythm of the world around them. They become strangers to the very earth that holds them. And when that disconnection deepens, it reveals another dangerous. There is a sacred wisdom in the natural world that requires no words to transmit. The whisper of wind through bamboo, the silent unfolding of a lotus, the quiet gaze of the moon. These are not just beautiful moments, they are ancient teachings. But there comes a time in many people's lives when these voices are no longer heard, not because nature has stopped speaking, but because the person has stopped listening. And this too is a dangerous side. When someone becomes so consumed by artificial life, screens, schedules, machines, that they forget the earth they walk upon. They no longer look up at the stars. They no longer sit beneath a tree. They no longer know the seasons by the scent in their air. They have become strangers in the very world that sustains them. At the Shaolin Temple, we are taught to live in harmony with the cycles of nature, not in opposition to them. The body follows the sun's rhythm. The breath flows with the seasons. Our stillness mirrors the mountain. But when a person loses this connection, they also lose the reflection that nature offers. A lake can only show you your face when it is still. Nature is the same. It shows you your inner state, not through logic, but through resonance. A restless mind finds discomfort in quiet forests. A chaotic soul feels bored in the stillness of dawn. But one who is attuned will walk into the woods and feel as though they are returning home. Disconnection from nature is not simply a spiritual concern, it is a psychological fracture. Many of today's struggles, anxiety, loneliness, depression, are made heavier by the fact that people no longer touch the soil, feel the wind, or bask in natural light. They are surrounded by noise yet feel empty, surrounded by people yet feel alone, and so too with the human spirit. Nature teaches without effort. It never hurries, yet everything is accomplished. The sun does not compete with the moon. The river does not force its flow. The flower does not rush to bloom. And yet all thrive in perfect timing. But the disconnected person sees none of this. They rush, they compare, they push, they live as if life is a race to win, rather than a rhythm to join. In doing so, they create suffering, not because life is cruel, but because they've fallen out of alignment with its deeper harmony. In Shaolin life, even our walking is a meditation. We feel the ground beneath our feet. We listen to the birds as if they are speaking directly to us, because they are. Everything in nature is a mirror for the one who is willing to see. The changing seasons reflect our internal seasons: birth, growth, decay, rest. The falling leaves remind us to let go. The mountain teaches us to yield. But when we forget nature, we also forget these teachings. We become like a sword that never touches the whetstone, dull, brittle, easily broken. And the most tragic part is that this disconnection often goes unnoticed. It begins with small things: eating without presence, working without pause, living indoors for weeks without stepping barefoot on the earth. Gradually, the senses dull. Wonder fades, the sacred becomes invisible, and the person begins to live only in their thoughts, detached from the living world around them. To return to nature is to return to balance. It does not require travel or rituals, only awareness. A single breath beneath the sky, a moment of silence under the stars, a gaze into a tree's stillness. These can realign a fragmented soul. But when a person no longer seeks such moments, when they reject simplicity in favor of constant stimulation, they are walking a path of spiritual starvation. They may appear successful, productive, socially connected, but deep within, something essential is missing. A melody that no longer plays, a wisdom that no longer reaches them. And when that song of nature has been muted for too long, another inner disconnection emerges. One far more personal, far more revealing. It is the inability to sit with oneself in silence. There is a practice at the heart of every true spiritual path. A practice of stillness. Not simply sitting without movement, but dwelling in deep presence. Alone, undistracted and undisturbed. And yet for many people today, this is the most terrifying place to be. To sit in silence, with no phone, no noise, no external input, just the self, the breath, and the truth of one's own being has become nearly unbearable. They will do anything to avoid it. This is a dangerous sign. Because when you lose the ability to be still, you lose your access to inner clarity. And without clarity, you may live. In Shaolin, stillness is not optional. It is where everything begins and everything returns. Before a warrior acts, he must observe. Before a monk teaches, he must listen. Stillness is not absence, it is essence. It is the condition from which all wise action emerges. But in the world outside the temple, stillness is often mistaken for laziness or emptiness. People equate movement with progress, noise with intelligence, and constant stimulation with growth. But movement without awareness leads only to exhaustion. Noise without understanding leads only to confusion. And growth without stillness is like a tree reaching for the sky without rooting itself in the earth. It topples in the first storm. When someone cannot sit quietly with themselves, it is not boredom they are fleeing, it is confrontation. In silence, the mind begins to speak truths that the noise kept buried. Regrets arise, longing surfaces, wounds that were numbed begin to ache again. And this is the medicine they need, but it is bitter. So they reach for distractions. They overwork, overscroll, overtalk. They live from one notification to the next, voicing the voice. But this voice, when ignored long enough, begins to fade. And when that inner voice grows silent, the person is no longer guided. They are carried, tossed by the winds of the world, reactive, restless. In the temple, the practice of Zazen, seated meditation, is a mirror. Not a performance, but a direct meeting with the self. There is no one to impress, no goal to achieve. You sit, you breathe, you witness. At first it feels uncomfortable. The mind resists, the body fidgets, emotions rise. But in time, the surface calms, and beneath the waves, a deeper current is felt. This is the return to original nature. The clarity that arises from this stillness is not something you find. It is something that was always there, simply waiting to be remembered. But the modern person resists this encounter. They say, I'm too busy or I can't sit still. But busyness is often a mask for avoidance. And the inability to sit still is a symptom, not a personality trait. It is a sign that the nervous system has been hijacked by endless activity. It is a sign that the mind has been trained to fear its own content. And most dangerously, it is a sign that the soul has forgotten how to come home to itself. When a person is never still, their relationships suffer. They stop listening deeply. They interrupt, they rush. They cannot hold space for another because they cannot even hold space for themselves. When a person is never still, their creativity fades. Inspiration does not scream, it whispers. And if you cannot be still, you cannot hear it. They act from reaction, not reflection. They are always doing, but rarely being. Stillness is where real transformation begins, not in external achievement, but in the quiet dismantling of false identity. To sit alone and observe your thoughts without judgment is to take back the seat of inner power. To witness pain and not run, to notice craving and not fill it, this is strength. And this strength is what makes the Shaolin path not only powerful, but peaceful. So if you find yourself unable to sit still, if silence makes you anxious, if being alone feels like punishment, do not turn away. Let toward it. Let the discomfort guide you. For hidden within it is your greatest teacher, yourself. And once you meet yourself fully, something subtle shifts. Your eyes begin to see differently. Not just yourself, but others too. You recognize the signs, not to judge, but to understand. Because the way out of danger always begins with awareness. In the quiet spaces between our actions and our thoughts, life is always whispering to us, but only a few listen. What we have explored together is not meant to point outward, to judge or label others. It is an invitation inward, to reflect, to observe, to become conscious of the subtle ways we abandon our own inner harmony. The loss of curiosity, the habit of blame, the mask of false positivity, the disconnection from nature, they are signs, gentle warnings from within, calling us back to ourselves. There is strength in seeing, there is power in noticing without reacting, and there is deep wisdom in slowing down enough to ask, am I really here? Or have I slowly drifted away from the essence of who I am? To be truly dangerous in the Shaolin way is not to possess brute force, but to live without presence. And so the antidote is not more speed, not more control, but more awareness, more breath, more being. A Zen saying reminds us, when the mind is nowhere, it is everywhere. In that spaciousness, healing happens, not through effort, but through returning again and again to the simple truth that you are already whole when you are fully here. Not in this moment, in this breath, in this stillness. So I leave you with a challenge. Not to strive harder, not to add more to your life, but to pause, just for a moment. Sit in stillness, without distraction, without expectation. Observe what arises. You may discover that what you've been seeking was never lost, only buried beneath layers of noise and forgetting. Start today, not by moving, but by sitting still and seeing what remains. Thank you for walking this path with me. May your days be guided by awareness, your actions rooted in peace, and your presence become the greatest gift you offer to the world. Until next time, walk gently and live deliberately.